Hello, and welcome to the Will County Community Mental Health Board podcast. My name is Tina Mackey, and I'm the Executive Director. Mental Health Board opportunities were established in 1963 with legislation signed by President John Kennedy. In Illinois, House Bill 708 allowed for the creation of mental health boards, which is why we often refer to them as 708 boards. Fast forward here in Will County in the fall of 2022, residents of Will County voted yes to a tax levy referendum establishing the Will County Community Mental Health Board in order to provide services locally for individuals living with mental illness, substance use disorders, and intellectual developmental disabilities. The Will County Community Mental Health Board is eager to share with you information about our grantees. Welcome to our podcast. I'm happy to be here this morning with Megan Pennington.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thanks for being here. Thanks for your time. Megan's the Manager of Development and Community Promotion and also the Advocate Supervisor at Casa of River Valley.
Correct.
So I'm really eager. This organization is so important, and I'm not sure that there's a lot of awareness in the general community about what CASA does and this really important role that you play. So I'm really glad you're here today. And let's talk a little bit about CASA and
Absolutely.
The advocacy role that you play for children in family court, right?
Correct.
Okay. So how long has CASA been?
So CASA was actually incorporated. CASA is a nationwide organization, but Casa of River Valley started off as Casa of Will County in 1993.
Okay.
And then shortly before the pandemic began, in January of 2000, we also opened up our services to children in Grundy County as well.
Okay.
And so that's when we transitioned to Casa of River Valley.
I see. Okay. So much of the work is done by volunteers.
Correct. We
right?
could not do what we do without our volunteers.
Okay. So let's say I'm the average volunteer. What's sort of the nuts and bolts of my role?
So our volunteers start off with a 33-hour training that kind of incorporates all sorts of things about the juvenile court system, family and child welfare, and what is going to entail to be a CASA volunteer advocate. So once a volunteer completes their training, they're sworn in by the judge at the Will County Court.
Oh, okay.
Because we are appointed as the guardian ad litem to a child or children.
Okay.
And once a volunteer is sworn in, then they are assigned a case. And this might be one child, this might be multiple children in a family. And what their job is to serve this child and look out and advocate for their best interest.
Okay.
So we are not caseworkers per se. Each child or family that comes into the family court system is assigned an agency to work with them, whether it's DCFS or a contracted agency through DCFS. So a caseworker handles really the nuts and bolts of the cases.
Okay.
But our CASA volunteers, they're going to go out and they're going to visit at least monthly with each child for an hour or two. And they're not just going to check in and say, okay, I'm going to cross off this and cross off this. They're going to really get to know that child.
Okay.
Because we want to build a relationship with them. We want to build a bond with them. And we want them to know that we're looking out for their best interest. Oftentimes when a child or a family comes into care, they may have a rotating door of people in and out of their lives.
Okay.
If they're in a foster care placement, they may be in multiple foster homes. They may have multiple caseworkers. If they're changing placements, that means different teachers. That might mean changing, counselors or service providers. But their CASA advocate stays with them throughout that entire process.
Okay.
When a CASA advocate starts volunteering, we do typically ask them to maintain at least a 2-year time commitment. That's kind of the average amount of time that a case remains open before it closes.
Okay.
So that person is a source of constancy for the child.
So they would go to the court as well?
They can if they want to. They're not required to. A lot of our CASA volunteers, they work, they have families, and court is held during the day.
Oh, I see.
But that's why we have CASA staff and our CASA attorneys. We represent the child in court.
Okay. So often the interest of the guardian ad litem would be consistent with the family in terms of wanting the best interest for the child, but sometimes not.
It depends on if the family really wants the best interest of the child or not, though.
So sometimes it can be a real challenge.
It can be conflicting, and that sometimes we do go into court and we may have a conflicting opinion from what the agency is saying. DCFS might be saying one thing, and we might go into court and be saying another.
Okay.
I can give you an example. We had a case where there was a child that had been removed from their biological parent and had suffered a lot of traumatic experiences under that biological parent.
Okay.
They were placed in a foster home. And the agency that was assigned to this child and working with the foster home, we had a lot of concerns about some of the foster parents' behaviors towards the child. And the agency that was working with the child disagreed with us up to a point, and we kept stressing our concern, and it got to the point where we learned that this child was being physically and emotionally abused by this foster parent.
Gosh. Okay.
And so we were able to step in and swiftly move to get this child and his sibling removed from the home.
Okay.
And we were able to work with our attorneys and with the judge, and the child was removed from the home. They were placed into a different home, and they are thriving.
Oh, wonderful.
And they are on the track to adoption. They are doing so well.
Yeah.
So that might be an example of when we have to go into court and we might not have the same opinion as DCFS or their agency, but we're looking out for what we think is in that child's best interest.
Well, and the volunteer, like you said, has likely spent more one-to-one time with the young person.
I don't want to say that necessarily, depending on if there are multiple caseworkers, and yes, that's the case. The caseworkers we work with through DCFS and their agencies, or we work alongside, I should say, many of them are very hardworking and very committed and dedicated to their jobs and the children that they serve as well.
Okay.
So I don't want to make it seem like they're not doing their jobs, but sometimes we might have different information.
Sure.
Because we're doing follow-ups as well, which I can go into if you want to know a little bit more about what else a CASA advocate does. But normally we work alongside the agencies and everything very well. It's just sometimes we have different information.
Well, and in almost every case, children are so vulnerable, right? They without the advocacy, they just don't have the representation that they require for placement or in court.
Correct. Well, and oftentimes, if a child is not appointed a CASA advocate as a guardian ad litem, they're going to be appointed a public defender through the court system.
All right.
And with that being said, the public defenders, same thing. They work very hard at their jobs, but they have hundreds of children on their caseload, whereas a CASA advocate has one or several on their caseload. So we can dedicate that time and that energy to being with that child and really finding out what is in their best interest, whereas a public defender, they're only required to visit with the child once or twice a year.
Oh, gosh.
And even then, sometimes they might send somebody as a proxy. It could be virtual. So they're not establishing that relationship, whereas a CASA advocate is. And so that's why it's so crucial for CASA to maintain and to generate funding so that we can support our, adding additional volunteers to serve all the children in Will and Grundy County.
Right. And like you said, it's not that the child's best interest isn't of interest to most people, but I've been in family court, and it can get really emotional, and people, start these turf battles, and sometimes the best interest of the child is just not the uppermost
it's tossed to the wayside.
Right.
Now, I will say the goal in Illinois is reunification with the family of origin, so a return home to the biological family. But when an agency such as DCFS or a contracted agency is assigned to the family, they are working for that whole family.
Okay.
And that's not to say that CASA is not. We are in full support of parents who are working hard to get their children back. Again, that goal in Illinois is reunification. But our priority is that child.
Right. the
So
young person.
that is what we are focusing on, is solely the child.
And once the child understands that and begins to trust the person, there might be more information shared.
Right.
It's
It's actually really heartwarming, the relationship that a
Right.
lot of the kids that we serve develop with their advocates. I actually had an advocate reach out to me not so long ago, and she's like, I have to share this with you. And it was a really rough day in court. So this was really, I sent it out to our whole team. And her very first child that she had served in 2017, her very first case, so she's been a CASA volunteer for 8 years now, found her on Facebook and sent her a message through Facebook Messenger telling her, I hope you know what a difference that you made in our
nice.
life, and I've never forgotten about you. And she gave her an update on how well she was doing, and she was thriving. And again, she ended the message with, I've never forgotten about you and what you
Nice.
did for us.
Yeah.
And so
that's wonderful.
just know, and we've had CASA volunteers who have been with kids. Unfortunately, sometimes there are some cases that remain open for an extended period of time, or sometimes older youth end up just aging out of the system.
Oh, I see.
But their CASA volunteer will be there throughout
Sure.
that time with them. And we've had CASAs, invited to weddings, and I mean, it's really
Yeah.
the bond that is established oftentimes. They know that their CASA is their person.
And like you said, it's so important. That might be the only consistent level of support for a young person
Right.
during a period of time in their life, right?
Absolutely.
So how many children are you typically serving?
So right now we are serving 431 children as of the beginning of this year.
Okay.
And so that's 220 families.
Okay.
Since April of this year, we've had, I want to say, 113 new children come into care.
Wow.
For CASA, that were appointed CASAs, let me double check 186 of those cases, or 186 cases have come into Will County in general. So if we're only serving, approximately 115, that's nowhere near the 100% that we want to serve. I want to
So
say
there's
it's on
quite a
average
few
about
children.
63%.
Okay.
Now, before the pandemic, we were actually we were well on our way to getting, I think we were serving maybe 85% of the kids in Will County. And once the pandemic hit, things changed. We're definitely getting back up there. We have, a lot of pretty steady stream of volunteers that are working with us. But there is still an increasing number of children that are coming into care that could use the support of a CASA advocate.
Okay. So to get that percentage higher, what's required? Additional volunteers?
Additional volunteers.
Okay.
We have to have enough volunteers because it would really defeat our purpose of looking out for the best interest of a child. And we do have some CASAs that have 2, even 3 cases. If they feel that it's in their bandwidth and they love what they're doing as a volunteer, and they offer to take on more cases. And it's not really a huge time commitment. I know it seems like, a 33-hour training and then you're visiting with the child every month. But it's really not. It's a couple of hours every month. You visit for 1 hour, 1 to 2 hours maybe, and then you're spending a couple of hours maybe making a couple phone calls to follow up on services,
All right.
emailing the child's teacher to see how things are going, maybe sitting in on an IEP meeting, and then every few months writing a court report. So it's really not a huge time commitment.
Okay.
But yes, in order to serve more children, we need to have enough volunteers to serve each child or their family.
And the volunteer, like you said, you provide the training.
Correct.
Are there any other parameters, like over 18 or?
So yes, usually our volunteers, I think are typically, it was 25, and I want to say we're 22 right now.
Okay.
But depending on the person's background and their experience and their interest, it's kind of open for negotiation.
Okay,
So
all right.
we just really want people that want to serve children.
Okay.
And we do have some younger volunteers that are
nice.
very, very mature. We have a volunteer that is an undergrad right now and wanting to go to med school. So he's a great advocate. He works really well with the 2 little boys that he's assigned. So yes, it's not a hard cut rule that, if you're this age, you can't volunteer.
Nice. Okay. And then you provide the training, so you don't have to have any specific background.
Nope. We have a whole range of backgrounds. I mean, we have people that are, teachers or counselors or psychologists or nurses or people that have had no experience working with children or in child welfare, but they just have a heart that they want to serve the children. And so, yes, they receive training, but then so once they're assigned a case, part of my job title is Advocate Supervisor. So they have an Advocate Supervisor that's overseeing that case. They're not thrown to the wolves and said, okay, here you go. You have a supervisor that's guiding you every step of the way. From the time they're first assigned to the case, our Advocate Supervisors, they go out, they'll accompany the advocate on their first visits.
Okay.
We give them a basic guideline of, okay, this is what we need to do in terms of, getting this visit done. Then let's contact the biological parent. If they are in school, let's reach out to the teacher and see how they're doing. If they're in counseling or they need counseling, maybe we're going to advocate with the caseworker and say, hey, this kid is having a lot of behavioral issues. I really think they would benefit from play therapy. Let's get a referral for play therapy.
Okay.
And then we would be following up with that counselor on a regular basis or participating in like child and family team meetings where maybe the counselor is involved.
Okay.
So, yeah.
So there is an effort to provide services for the youngster and even the family.
Absolutely.
In order to help them build those skills to get back to being a family.
So that's one of the core steps when a case comes into care. Parents and children will undergo what's called an integrated assessment, and this is set up by the agency they're assigned. And based off of that integrated assessment or potentially any issues that brought the child into care, whether it's mental illness, substance abuse, domestic violence, a service plan is going to be put in place. And in that service plan, it's going to detail everything that needs to happen for reunification to occur. And it can include the parents, it can include the child, it can include steps for the foster parents.
Nice.
Maybe if a child is in a foster home, maybe the foster parent needs to make sure that the child is, regularly in counseling, up to date on all of their medical appointments. That's all going to be included in a service plan.
Okay. Nice.
And CASA definitely has input to recommend. If we see something that we think needs to be addressed, we can recommend that the service plan be amended and that service be put in there.
All right.
Whether it's just in a conversation or if we put it in our court report or file a motion with the judge.
Okay. So the Will County Community Mental Health Board provides some funding. And the way I understand it, there was a time when the volunteer could provide advocacy in the courtroom. I think the rules have changed now where the court requires an attorney.
Yes,
Okay.
That was a huge shift for our program. And so 2 years ago, you're correct. Prior to that, and again, a volunteer might have to testify or they might be called to speak to the court. But oftentimes it was a CASA staff member that would be speaking on behalf of the volunteer and the child. But we technically did not have a legal voice in the courtroom because of that. The rules changed and now we have to have legal representation. And so 2 years ago, we brought 2 attorneys in to our program, and it has been such a great shift.
Oh, really?
It has been a wonderful, wonderful addition to our program to really give CASA a legal foothold in that courtroom and a legal standing.
Okay. So again, correct me if I'm wrong, it sounds like with the attorney, the court-ordered referral is a little bit more successful.
Correct. So with our attorneys, before we could say something, but it wasn't necessarily, if we could say, okay, we would like this added to a court order, that a parent, let's just say a parent complete a psychological evaluation.
Oh, I see.
But because we didn't have any legal standing, it didn't necessarily mean that was going to get put in there. We couldn't file motions. So now with our attorneys, we have, attorneys that can make sure our voice is really being heard loud and clear.
Oh, great.
And if there's something that we're asking for, they're going to fight that be put into the court order, or they might file a motion to get the case brought back up into court to have, something addressed.
Right. And that could make all the difference for a young person who, like you said, needs counseling or needs psychiatric care or some other kind of referral, a specialty referral.
It makes a huge difference.
Yeah.
One example that I can give you that happened once we had our attorneys was there was a youth that was in a psychiatric hospital, and there were really any efforts being made to find her a different placement. And the youth was in the psychiatric hospital
Much
beyond
longer than
where
you'd
she
want.
needed to be in there.
Right.
And so our CASAs and our CASA attorney came forward, and we motioned it up in court, and we requested that the agency that was working with the child, go beyond their normal network of foster placements and
Okay.
put out, it's kind of
Finds-
a bulletin throughout the state,
Right.
seeking out another placement. And they were able to find her another placement.
Okay.
And this child was able to leave the psychiatric hospital and go into find a stable placement rather than being stuck. And if we didn't have a CASA attorney where we could motion forward to do that, once a case is established, it's usually only up in court twice a year for a permanency review hearing.
Right, right.
And so, yes, we could have addressed our concern in our court report, but let's say court was, 4 months
3 months,
away.
right.
We might have to, that poor child would have been
been
there for
sitting
an
there.
additional 4 months,
Yeah.
whereas we were able to bring it up, as a crucial issue.
Nice.
And motion for the case to be heard sooner.
Great. So it sounds like we're headed in the right direction.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. Our attorneys have been a wonderful addition to our program. I'm so thankful for them.
Okay. So if somebody wants to volunteer, they just contact Casa of River Valley?
Yes, so Casa River Valley's website, you can go to our website, and there's a tab on there where somebody can look into volunteering. You fill out a form, and then you're going to be contacted by somebody for an interview, just an informal interview, nothing formal. A background check needs to be done. You'll talk with somebody from our program about,
Okay.
about the program. How did you hear about CASA? What interest do you have in CASA? And the ball gets rolling.
Okay. And then donations, funding. Funding's always an issue.
Funding is always an issue, and donations as well. This time of year with the holidays, we definitely have people starting to reach out more, wanting to donate, a giving tree program, or schools are doing collections,
Okay.
which is wonderful and a huge blessing, and we're very appreciative of it. But we work year round.
Yeah.
And we do get donations, in the summer for school supplies. So we're always able to provide school supplies. Okay.
So I didn't even think about that. So CASA does provide the children that you serve with school supplies or maybe a holiday gift?
Absolutely. So we
Okay.
have school supplies, we get holiday gifts, we get Easter baskets at Easter
Oh,
time.
great. Okay.
But what's really important is not just those, several times per year, but when a child first comes into care, right off the bat, on their very first day, they're going to be given a backpack. And we're going to give them a backpack, and we're going to put toiletries in there. We're going
Okay.
to put books. We're going to put blankets. We're going to put in pajamas. We're going to put in some toys. If they're babies, we're going to try and throw in diapers and wipes
babies
and
and-
formula. So those are things that we need year-round
round.
for each child that
Okay.
comes into care. Even lined up outside of our office, we have some suitcases that were donated, because a lot of times, and this is not, you've heard stories about kids going from foster home to foster home with garbage bags of their stuff.
Yeah.
That's not made up. That actually happens.
Right,
And so we
right.
want to make sure they at least have something to put their things in.
Right.
And if they run out of school supplies come January, hey, guess what? I've got a whole bunch of things that we can bring for you.
Nice, nice.
Or if they, a child moves to a new foster home and they don't have many clothes, we're going to say, hey, here's some pajamas, here's some socks,
Right.
here's some,
new
underwear,
school
yeah,
outfit,
new school
yeah.
outfit.
So these really are the most vulnerable children in our community.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. We are always accepting donations. We do have an Amazon wish list, but I work with a lot of our donations. That's part of my role is community development. And so you can easily call or email our program, and definitely somebody would reach out to you if
Okay.
you're interested
All right.
in, providing donations.
Now you've got a fundraiser tickets are on sale now, I think, right?
Correct, our CASA Christmas Express.
Okay, so that sounds like kind of a fun event if you want to describe it a little bit.
It is, and that's actually how I first got acquainted with CASA
Okay.
when my kids were really little. I'm sure you're familiar with the Polar Express movie.
Sure.
So what we do is we take Metro trains out from the new Lenox train station, and it's one of my favorite days of the year. It's so sweet looking at the kids. They usually dress up either in like their fun Christmas outfits or Christmas pajamas, and they go on the train, and we have a bunch of volunteers that come out on the train, and from volunteers from schools and other organizations.
Okay.
And they sing songs, and they play games, and they're kind of serve as Christmas elves. And then we go to Tinley Park, and the place in Tinley Park, we kind of have a Christmas wonderland set up where the kids can do crafts, and they can get hot chocolate, and they can meet with Santa, and they're given a little stuffed animal. And then their tickets include food, so we have a whole big array of food for kids and their families.
That's
and
fun.
it's a wonderful, wonderful event. It's December 6th and 7th this year.
Okay.
And we have 4 trains that go out each of those days.
Oh, okay.
So it's probably one of our biggest events, and it's a great opportunity.
It sounds like a lot of fun.
It is.
So the website, you visit the website to link to tickets?
Yes, to get to our
Okay.
tickets, absolutely.
Okay. And then next spring, you have an event, I think.
Correct, our Heart for the Child Gala.
Okay.
And
the
so
gala.
that is, I want to say, March 7th of 2026. And again, you can go to our website to get information on that. But that's one of our other really big fundraising events where people come and they get real dressed up, and there's a really nice sit-down dinner, but there's lots of raffles, and
Nice.
Oftentimes we honor a volunteer there. We usually have people from the community come that we honor that have like a strong tie with CASA. We sometimes have kids come, older kids maybe, to speak about their experience.
Oh,
and
nice.
Yeah, it's a
Okay.
wonderful evening, but those 2 are our 2 biggest fundraisers.
And that's open to the public?
Yes. Mhm.
Okay.
Anybody can attend.
Okay, great. Okay, so we talked about the role you play, the children that you're serving. We'd like to get that percentage up if we can get some more volunteers and
Absolutely.
a little bit more funding, and then lots of opportunities to impact children. If you're interested in donating supplies or money.
Right. Maybe you don't. Right. Absolutely. Maybe you don't.
A check is always
Checks are always welcome. Nobody will ever turn away some cash or a check. But right. I mean, our volunteers are the lifeblood of our organization because we have, I want to say, 115 approximately right now. And without our volunteers, we couldn't do any of the things that we do. We wouldn't be able to serve the children that we do. And so, volunteer is great, but sometimes people don't have the bandwidth to do that at that time. But if you still have an
and it can be very emotional, I'm thinking.
It can be, yes, but rewarding at the same time.
Very much so.
Yeah, it can be emotional but rewarding.
I was at a luncheon, just randomly. I was at a luncheon and I had visited your location, and I was kind of bragging about the organ. I was like, you can't believe the impact that this organization has on these children. And again, I've worked in community mental health for many years, so I've been in family court a few times with clients, and it's not easy. Everyone has their priorities, and like you said, sometimes there's mental illness involved, or substance use, or domestic violence, and there's a lot of variables. And so again, I was sort of bragging a little bit about CASA, and a woman at the table said, "Oh, I'm a volunteer."
Oh, really?
Yeah, and so it made for a really interesting conversation at the lunch table. That and she mentioned that there are times where she has to call and say, golly, the parent said this or the child said this, and I wasn't sure how to react. And she said, you get really good support. And sometimes it's okay to say, I'm not sure, but let's get some more information to try and solve the problem. But she said it's the most rewarding volunteer experience she's ever had.
Well, and I can speak for all of my coworkers. We are here. We're not getting paid like what a doctor would get paid, right? So we're here because we love what we do, and we really believe in the mission of the work that we do. CASA is a nonprofit organization, and our volunteers are here of their own volition, with their own time and energy. Our CASA staff, we are here to support our volunteers. I mean, and it's funny you said, a volunteer might ask their advocate supervisor what to do, and even just and I feel like all of our advocate supervisors have really good relationships with our volunteers. We really treasure the work that they do, and we want to guide them and support them through their work. So last night I had a volunteer, she sent me a question or a text message with maybe 4 different things, and I said, okay, hold that thought. I was like, I promise, and I have a reminder on my phone to, email her back at 11:30 this morning so that I have time to thoroughly go through and address everything that she had questions on and needed support with. And I know my coworkers do the same thing.
Yeah. About how many volunteers do you have right now?
About 115, I want to say.
Oh, wow. So quite a few.
Yes. It's been great.
It'd be nice if you could double that.
We could serve a lot more children, and but then that comes along with that comes the need for additional funding to hire more advocate supervisors as well to supervise our volunteers.
Right. It's such an important service, though.
It is. It
such
truly
an important service. Again, children at their most vulnerable. It's so helpful to have one consistent, familiar face in the crowd, right?
Right.
Like you said. So
well, and like you said, they're not only just vulnerable to their current circumstances, but they're victims of abuse and neglect.
Right.
I mean, and these kids.
Yeah, they're in this cycle. They're in this court for a reason.
Yes, and it can be heartbreaking, but at least those children know they have somebody standing in their corner advocating for them.
Right.
And whether it's a child, a teenager, or a young adult, because the children don't age out until the age of 21.
Okay.
So I have kids on my caseload that are 20, 19 years old, and I'm still working with, and they're kind of fun because you develop a different relationship with them as well. One of the kids on my caseload, he calls me his second mom, because he knows that I will nag him like I do my own children, though, too. And I'll say, hey, you need to do this, this. And he's like, okay. And I'm like, I'm just doing it to be helpful.
Yeah.
So.
Well, it's good guidance, too.
Right.
But like you said, they know it comes from the heart that, you're working in their best interest.
It melted my heart a few weeks ago. He was on a call for a placement with a temporary living facility. And they were asking him who his sources of support were, and he named his brother, and he named another family member. And I actually wasn't even on the call because I had a conflicting meeting. The caseworker was on the call, and she texted me afterwards, and she said he named you as his other main source of support. And I was like, okay.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm doing okay here.
Well, and not to get too far off subtopic, but in mental health training, mental health first aid, and some of those training programs, one of the first thing we tell young people is think about who your trusted adult is. Identify that trusted adult. Let them know that they're a person that you depend on and that you look to. So, I mean, that's suicide prevention.
Absolutely.
Those are really, really important tasks and really important, helpful ways to be supportive and advocate for a young person. So kudos.
Well, and doing the work, thank you, and doing the work that you do, I'm sure mental health is such a huge crisis for our youth right now. And this is just youth in general. You take children that have experienced extreme abuse and neglect, who have maybe been in multiple foster placements, are living in poverty, they're faced with situations of domestic violence and substance abuse, or maybe their parents' own mental illness. And so mental health is a huge crisis for the children that we work with. And unfortunately, I would say that is one of the biggest areas right now where there's a huge gap in getting children the help that they need.
Okay.
Since April of this year, I would say 113 of the children approximately that we work with are in mental health services, such as counseling, whereas we have another, I want to say it's about 170 that are still in need of mental health services.
Wow.
And that's what's so hard right now, is because there just aren't enough service providers to get children the mental help that they need.
Wow. Okay.
And that's, another great way that I can talk about how our attorneys, played into us, is we had a child on one of our caseloads, and the agency that was working with her kept saying, we can't find a mental health provider, we can't find a mental health provider. And we were able to call it back up into court because we had a connection with a different organization where we were able to say, hey, this organization can get this child into mental health counseling within several weeks. And so within, I want to say, a week and a half, we were able to get this girl enrolled into mental health counseling and even have this organization provide transportation for her as well. And so that's just another area where you have a CASA advocate that's diligently identifying a need, a crucial need, especially one such as mental health, and doing whatever we can to get the child that help that they need.
Okay. So again, that points to the comprehensive nature of your support services. So
absolutely.
It's so important.
It is. It's crucial.
Well, thank you for your time this morning.
No problem. And I'm so happy that I was able to be here.
Yeah, I'm glad we learned a little bit more detail about Casa of River Valley and maybe the website one more time.
Yeah, casarivervalley.org. And if you don't mind, if I can just circle back to something you said real quick about getting children the help that they need. In Grundy County, we actually are opening up, we have office space there now that was donated to us right off of Route 47.
Okay.
And our goal, it's opening in December 25, the office space. We have multiple rooms there, and we're going to be utilizing this space for DCFS or any other agencies. They can use that for parent visitations. So when a child is visiting with their parent, sometimes if it has to be a supervised visit in the community, it might take place in a library, which is okay. We like libraries.
Or McDonald's.
And you're trying to keep a small child engaged for a 2-hour period, whereas we have rooms for babies, we have rooms for preschoolers, we have rooms for like older children, where the children filled with all sorts of activities, where the kids can do their visits with their parents.
Because that is a challenge.
That is a challenge.
Trying to find a location that everybody agrees on.
And we have a lot of excitement from DCFS and other agencies about that. We're also hoping to be able to utilize that space to offer parenting classes. Where providers can come in and they can offer parenting classes to parents as part of their service plan requirements. So it's definitely, we're really working to fill those gaps with wraparound services for the children and the families that we work with.
Right. It's not enough to recognize the challenges. It's really important to be able to offer the services so people can build skills.
Absolutely.
Right? To get families back together.
Absolutely. And that's
in
our
a
goal.
Healthy fashion.
Right. So it's really exciting that we have this new space that's opening up, because we're really able to kind of work towards fulfilling that goal of filling all of those gaps.
Great. So again, thank you for your time.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for letting me add that.
And we'll talk again soon.
Absolutely. Thank you. Take care.
Thanks, Megan.
Thank you.